It's always the same setup. Crisps in a mismatched bowl, Mum's rosé sweating on a coaster, Dad trying too hard to act like we're all having a laugh. The lights are too bright, and the playlist is stuck somewhere between throwback hits and someone's idea of bonding music. Game night. The one thing we all pretend to enjoy, like it's tradition, like it means we're fine. My sister's laughing too loud at something my brother said, but it's forced. I catch it in the corner of her mouth, that little twitch that says this is a performance. We're all actors in a scene we never auditioned for but got stuck in anyway. I'm sat between the radiator and the wall, clutching a lukewarm glass of something sweet and cheap. I've barely said a word tonight, but no one's noticed. That's normal. They only clock my silence when they need someone to blame it on. The game tonight is one of those overly personal card games. The kind people bring to parties when they want to feel like therapists without the training. Every round has been a landmine. Who do you trust the most? What's something you've never told your family? If you died tomorrow, what would you regret not doing? People giggle, dodge, lie. Then the next card slides into the center of the table like it knows what it's doing. Dad picks it up, reads it aloud, voice already condescending. What's your biggest regret? It hangs there. Long enough for someone to make a joke, long enough for someone else to deflect. But I don't let them. I pick up the card, slowly. I turn it over in my hand like I'm reading it again, just to be sure. And I smile. It's not a sweet smile. Not the kind I used to use when I wanted to be loved. It's the kind that says I know exactly what I'm about to do, and I've waited years for this moment. I look directly at my parents. Not my siblings, not the dog chewing something under the table. Just them. Like they're the only people in the room. Which, for this, they are, and I say as clearly and calmly as if I were ordering coffee. Letting you convince me I wasn't enough. Silence. Real silence. No music, no fake laughs, no rustling of crisp packets. Just the weight of my words settling across the room like dust after an explosion. Mum blinks like she's misheard. Dad opens his mouth, but nothing comes out. For once, they don't have a script. I stand up. Not rushed, not dramatic, just done. I walk to the hallway, pick up my coat. No one follows, because they know. They know this isn't about the card. This has been years coming, and this time, I'm not staying for the next round. It didn't start with shouting. People always imagine families falling apart through big, messy blowouts, plates thrown, voices raised, someone slamming a door and screaming, "You've ruined my life." But mine was quieter than that, softer. Like the way a room cools when someone opens a window you didn't realize was there. It was little things. Mum commenting on my weight when I reached for seconds. Dad calling it teasing, but his jokes always landed like paper cuts. Small, but never quite healed. My brother getting praise for breathing, while I got asked if I was showing off again for getting top marks. Once, when I won an award at school, actual trophy and everything, Dad looked at it, said, "Hope you're not getting cocky." That was the end of that celebration. I remember putting the trophy on the shelf, then quietly sliding it behind a plant the next day. When I was 14, I started writing. Stories, poems, nonsense really. But they were mine. I showed Mum a core piece once, just once, and she said, "That's a bit dramatic, isn't it?" She laughed, like it was harmless, but it wasn't. I stopped writing for years after that. It was always like that. Me reaching, them recoiling. I grew up trying to be small, in voice, in presence, in ambition. They'd call it modesty. I called it survival. At school, teachers would say I was bright, full of promise. At home, I was told not to get ahead of myself. Even when I did well, there was always a catch. That's great, but you know your cousin's already applying to Oxford, right? Or lovely drawing, but real jobs don't look like that. Or the classic, don't you want to be a bit more realistic? Realistic, as if dreaming was a dangerous disease they had to cure me of. It's weird the way you can be alive but feel like a ghost in your own home, always present, never quite seen. I tried to shrink myself into the kind of daughter they wanted: agreeable, quiet, useful. I made the tea before being asked. I folded laundry like it earned me points. I never brought up what I needed because they always made it sound like asking was selfish. But it's exhausting, trying to earn love that should have been free. Sometimes, I'd lie awake wondering if they'd notice if I just left. Packed a bag, walked out the door. I didn't want them to beg me to stay. I just wanted them to notice I was gone. Funny, isn't it? Now they have. And not because I yelled, not because I made a scene, but because I answered a question no one expected me to take seriously, a card game. That's what did it in the end. But really, they silenced me long before I ever spoke. There's this phrase people throw around nowadays, emotional neglect. It sounds clinical, like something out of a psychology textbook. But before I knew what to call it, I just thought I was the problem, because that's what they made me believe. Was too sensitive, too moody, too much, or not enough. Depending on the day. If I cried, I was being dramatic. If I didn't cry, I was cold. If I tried to explain how I felt, they'd say I was imagining things, twisting words, being difficult. And if I stayed silent, that was wrong too. It was a rigged game, one I was destined to lose no matter how I played it. I remember this. One afternoon, must have been around 12 or 13, I was upset about something that had happened at school. I can't even remember what it was now, just that it felt massive at the time. I came home, blinking back tears, and my mom looked up from the ironing and said, "Oh, not this again." Not what exactly? Being emotional? Needing comfort? Existing? So, I swallowed it. Whatever it was, stuffed it down deep like I always did, smiled through dinner, washed up afterwards, went to bed with that knot in my stomach and didn't speak of it again. That became the pattern. Learn the cues. Don't make waves. Don't be a burden. And it wasn't just the words they said. It was the way they looked through me when I spoke. How they'd cut each other off, but never interrupt my brother. How my wins were dissected and my losses amplified. How when I came home with good news, they'd be too busy or too tired or just not in the mood. It was the absence that hurt more than anything. Absence of encouragement, of empathy, of belief. They never beat me, never screamed at me, never locked me in a room or threw things or anything that would leave a mark on the skin. But that's the thing about emotional neglect. It leaves marks you can't see. Bruises on the inside. I didn't realize how heavy all that silence was until I left home. At uni, people listened, asked questions, waited for me to finish my thoughts. Friends said, "You're really insightful," and I flinched like it was a joke. Professors told me I had something rare, and I almost cried right there in the middle of a lecture hall because someone saw me and meant it. It took me years to unlearn the idea that love had to be earned, that I wasn't inherently worthy of it, that I didn't have to be useful to be wanted. But still, even with all that growth, I kept going back. Holidays, birthdays, obligations disguised as traditions, and game night. That damned card game. Part of me thought maybe, if I showed up enough, smiled enough, stayed polite enough, maybe they'd change. Maybe they'd finally see me. But all they ever saw was the version of me they invented. The one who kept her head down, didn't talk back, knew her place. Not anymore. It was supposed to be casual. A laugh, a few drinks, some old board games. That's what Mom texted me earlier in the week. "Just a quiet night in, love. Bit of family fun. You coming?" And like always, I said yes. Even though my stomach twisted, every time I stepped through that front door. Even though I spent the day mentally rehearsing how to make small talk with people who knew nothing about me, despite raising me, I brought wine. A stupid peace offering, as if fermented grapes could fill the space between us. My brother answered the door, already loud, already on his second beer. Mom kissed my cheek and asked if I was seeing anyone. Dad gave me a tight smile like he was bracing for something. We all played our roles, like clockwork. The table was cluttered with bowls of crisps and uneven stacks of old game boxes. Dad had picked some card game none of us had played before. It had these conversation prompts in it, questions meant to get people talking. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, what's the most spontaneous thing you've ever done? What's your biggest regret? That's the one that did it. It landed in my lap. Everyone turned to me, waiting, and I don't know what came over me. I hadn't planned to say it. I hadn't written a speech, but something inside me cracked like a rib under pressure. Years of being good, quiet, digestible, it all caught up with me in that moment. So I smiled, soft, slow, like I wasn't about to drop a bomb, and I looked straight at them. My biggest regret? I said, letting you convince me I wasn't enough. Silence. Not even the kind that follows something awkward. This one was sharp, heavy, like the air had teeth. Mum's mouth opened just slightly, like she was going to protest, but nothing came out. Dad blinked, that same expression he always wore when something didn't go according to plan. My brother gave a half laugh, like maybe I was joking. But when I didn't laugh with him, his face fell. I stood up. Not dramatically. No chair scrape or storm off. Just deliberate. I'm not angry anymore, I said. I'm just done. Mum started to say something. Now hang on. Or maybe it was don't be silly. But I was already walking away. I left the wine on the table. Let the door close behind me. Didn't look back. No shouting, no tears. Just the clean, terrifying sound of the end. It was the first time I left them on my terms. No guilt, no second guessing, just me, finally choosing myself, and God, it felt like freedom. The thing about leaving is that it doesn't make a noise. It doesn't make a grand statement or an earth-shattering wave. It just happens. People think they'll hear the moment when someone finally breaks free, but no one heard me. No one cared enough to notice. I didn't have a grand plan. I didn't make some dramatic speech to anyone else. I just packed my bags and left for good. It didn't matter that I'd spent years giving everything I had to make them proud or even just to make them see me. I could feel their disbelief in every unanswered text, every call that went straight to voicemail. What did they expect me to do? Keep showing up pretending like I didn't know the truth? Like I didn't know how small they made me feel? I can't say I wasn't scared. I had no backup plan. I moved into a tiny flat with secondhand furniture and walls that still smelled like new paint. But it didn't matter. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally breathing. Like I had control. The job came later. The friends came after. The healing. That took longer. But what people don't tell you about walking. A way is that, while it can be the hardest thing you'll ever do, it's also the most necessary. They couldn't wrap their heads around it, though. My brother called me a few weeks later. His voice was shaky, like he thought if he spoke too loud, I'd hang up. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "Your family. You can't just leave." I didn't know how to explain it to him. He was the one who'd never been in the crossfire, the one who had it easy. It was always me who tried, me who stayed, who got dragged into their issues, who was told to put them first. So I just said, I don't need to explain. I'm done. I could feel his confusion on the other side of the phone, the way he thought I'd come crawling back in a week, begging for forgiveness. But I didn't, and I wasn't going to. I had spent so much of my life believing their lies about who I was, their little jabs, their comments, the constant subtle messages that made me question my worth. But now I knew better, and no one was going to make me feel small again. When I hung up, I didn't feel guilty. I felt lighter, like something inside me had been holding on to this weight for years, and now it was gone. No one believed I'd do it, but I had, and that was the first step towards living life for myself. The thing they never tell you about reclaiming yourself is that it doesn't come with fireworks or applause. There's no magical moment when you suddenly feel free or at peace. It happens in small, quiet ways, like waking up in the morning and realizing you're not worried about anyone else's expectations. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the pressure of others' voices whispering in my ear, telling me I wasn't enough. I started living on my terms. No more overthinking, no more guilt. I stopped apologizing for needing space, for needing to breathe. It was strange at first, being alone in this new version of myself. I spent so much time worrying about their judgment, about their feelings, that I didn't know how to feel about my own anymore. I had to learn to trust myself again, to understand that it was okay to want more for me. There were still moments, of course, when I questioned myself. The quiet nights when the weight of the silence felt a little too heavy, when I missed the sound of their voices, or more accurately, their criticisms. But that was the thing. I wasn't missing them. I was missing the idea of who I used to be when I thought I needed them. I was doing okay. More than okay. I was thriving. My career had taken off in ways I hadn't imagined. I was going out with friends. I was waking up every day and realizing that I was living my own life, not the one they had imagined for me. I hadn't even realized how much they had molded me into someone I wasn't, until I started to find myself again. There was a letter on my desk the other day from my mother. It was long, filled with guilt, and the typical "we miss you" and "this family needs you" lines that made my skin crawl. But it was different this time, because as I read it, I realized how far I'd come, how much I'd changed, and I knew, deep down, I wasn't going back. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. But I wasn't going to let them back into my life. Not on their terms. Not when they still thought I was just the person who was supposed to fit into their idea of me. So I did what I had to do. I didn't reply. I put the letter in a drawer and shut it, and I moved on with my day. There's a part of me, I suppose, that always wondered if they would come around, if they would ever understand what I'd done, why I had to leave. But after all this time, I realized something. I don't need them to understand. What matters is that I understand. I understand that I'm enough. I've always been enough. I'm not defined by them anymore. I'm not the person who let them dictate who I should be. I'm not the girl who stayed because she thought she wasn't worthy of better. I'm the woman who left. And I've never been more certain of who I am than I am right now. I am enough.
It's Mother's Day, and the sun is barely up, casting a soft glow through the curtains. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, scrolling through my phone, watching everyone else post their heartfelt tributes to the women who gave them life, the ones who raised them and loved them unconditionally. Their posts are full of photos, perfect, smiling families, warm hugs, and captions that sound straight out of a Hallmark card. I scroll past, a tight knot forming in my chest. I think about my own mom. The woman who birthed me, yes, but somehow always felt like a distant figure in my life, like a shadow I could never quite reach. She's never been the type to express love openly or make me feel seen. I've always been second to her career, her routine, her everything except me. But today isn't about her. Today, I'm posting about someone who actually made me feel what it was like to be loved without any conditions. I tap the screen, pulling up a picture of Sarah's mom Linda and me at her kitchen table last summer. The photo is candid, both of us laughing, a warm cup of tea between us. Linda's eyes are sparkling, the kind of warmth you only find in people who truly care. She's always made me feel like I matter, like I'm not invisible. Even when I felt like the world was moving on without me, she was there, offering a listening ear, a hug, a meal. She's treated me like a daughter long before I knew I needed it. I take a breath and start typing, carefully choosing my words. Happy Mother's Day to the woman who taught me what unconditional love looks like. Linda, thank you for always making me feel like I matter. You have been the mother I never knew I needed. Your kindness, your patience, your endless support have made all the difference in my life. I'm lucky to know you and lucky to call you family. A thank you. Family, Jill, Real Mothers Dao. As I finish typing, I hesitate for a moment, then hit post. For a second, I wonder if I'm doing the right thing. Should I be posting about my mom, the woman who's supposed to be my mom? But then I think back to all the times Linda took me in when I had nowhere else to go. The times she fed me when I was hungry, the times she just listened. Something my own mom never seemed to find the time to do. So I don't second guess myself. I know This is the right thing to do. I set the phone down and try to go about my day, but my mind keeps drifting back to the post. I wonder if anyone will understand the sentiment. I wonder if it'll make sense to anyone but me. A few hours later, my phone buzzes with notifications, likes, comments. A few friends have chimed in with their own messages, saying how beautiful it is to have someone like Linda in my life. And then I see it. My mom's name, in bold. She's commented, "I see you posted something today. I'm glad Linda's been so great to you, but maybe you should remember who raised you." The words hit like a punch in the gut. I can feel the anger welling up in my chest. She's never said anything like that to me before, but the way she's said it, so cold, so passive-aggressive, it feels like a slap, and it stings. I stare at the screen for a moment, unsure of what to say. I know she's hurt. I know she's always wanted more from me, but I also know that what I've posted is true. Linda has been there for me in ways my own mother never was. I type a response and delete it a few times. Part of me wants to be blunt, tell my mom that maybe she should have been more like Linda if she wanted me to feel like I mattered. But I hold back. I don't want to start a fight. Not today, not on Mother's Day. So instead, I respond with something simple. "I love you, Mom, but today, I just wanted to give credit where credit is due." I hit send before I can second-guess myself again. Then, I put my phone down and walk away, my heart heavy in my chest. I never thought posting a tribute would feel so complicated. The next few hours drag by. I try to distract myself, organizing my room, getting a coffee, scrolling through my feed, but my phone keeps buzzing, pulling me back into the whirlwind I'm trying to avoid. The notifications keep popping up, each one reminding me that I'm no longer in control of this situation. The first few comments under my post are from friends. They're supportive, all of them echoing what I feel. "You're so lucky to have Linda," one says. "What a beautiful tribute," another comments. My heart swells with each one, knowing they understand. Then, my mom's message pops up again. "I don't know why you feel the need to publicly compare me to someone else. I've always done my best for you." I sit down on my bed, staring at the words. The knot in my stomach tightens. This isn't how I wanted it to go. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I wasn't trying to disrespect her. But now, it's clear that the post has opened something that I didn't even know was there. I take a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of frustration bubbling inside me. The urge to respond immediately is strong, but I know better. Reacting now would only escalate things. The last thing I want is a full-on argument, especially not on a day like today. But my phone won't stop. It's like it's become an extension of the tension in the air. My mom, my dad, even my sister. Everyone's starting to chime in. The comments range from, "It's great Linda's been there for you, but you have a mother too," to, "I'm sure your mom's feelings are hurt." It's the passive-aggressive tone in their messages that stings the most. They don't see it. They never see it. They think I owe my mom something for simply being there. But what is being there if you're never really present? I feel a tap on my shoulder and I jump, startled. Sarah is standing there, her face filled with concern. "You okay?" she asks, her voice soft but with an underlying urgency. She knows how complicated my relationship with my mom is, but she's never seen it flare up like this before. I sigh, putting the phone down. "It's just, my mom's upset." "About the post?" she asks. "Yeah," I say, rubbing my temples. "It wasn't even meant to be a thing. I don't know. I was trying to say thank you to Linda for all the ways she's been there for me, and now it's turned into this mess." Sarah raises an eyebrow. "Your mom's mad because you posted something nice about Linda?" I nod, a bitter laugh escaping me. "Apparently," she shakes her head. "That's ridiculous. She should be proud that Linda's been a good influence in your life. But you know what your mom's like? She always wants to be the center of attention. It's the truth, but it still stings to hear it out loud. Sarah's always been the one to call things as they are, and maybe that's why I value her opinion so much. But even so, this feels like too much. It's not just the post anymore. It's the years of feeling like I've been living in my mom's shadow, trying to fit into a mold she never made space for me in. I glance back at my phone, debating whether to reply to my mom again, but before I can, my phone rings. It's my mom. I freeze, staring at the screen. Do I answer? Do I even want to hear what she has to say? I know what's coming. I know she's angry, but I also know she's not going to say it outright. She never does. It's always veiled in passive-aggressive remarks, in insinuations. The phone rings a second time, and I finally pick up, not sure what to expect. "Hello?" I say, my voice quieter than I intended. "What's this nonsense, then?" My mom's voice cuts through the line, sharp and full of tension. I close my eyes, taking a breath. "I just posted something about Linda, Mom. I thought it would be a nice tribute." "I know what you posted," she snaps. "But do you know how that makes me feel? You post about someone else on Mother's Day of all days? I'm your mother. Why can't you show me that kind of appreciation?" I bite my lip. There's so much I want to say, so much I want to explain to her. How Linda has given me the love and attention that my own mother never did. But I stay, quiet, letting her words land, heavy and bitter. "I'm sorry if it hurt you," I finally say, my voice barely above a whisper. "But it wasn't meant to be an attack. It wasn't about you." "Well, it certainly feels like an attack to me," she retorts. "I've spent years doing everything for you, and this is how you repay me?" I feel my temper rising, but I can't let it out. Not now. Not like this. "I didn't mean to make you feel that way," I say again, but this time it's more out of habit than genuine apology. Because the truth is, I don't know how else to make her understand. The things I needed from her, she was never able to give me, and I'm not going to apologize for finding that love somewhere else. "Fine," she mutters, her tone cold and final. "I don't have the energy for this right now." And then, with a sharp click, she hangs up. The line goes silent, but I can still hear the echo of her voice, sharp and hurt. And in that silence, I realize the conversation is far from over. It's the next morning, and the weight of yesterday's drama hangs over me like a cloud. I wake up with a headache, my phone on the nightstand buzzing intermittently, almost like it's taunting me. The silent tension between my mom and me lingers in the air, but so does a strange sense of relief. I know this sounds messed up, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like I've done something for myself. I drag myself out of bed, hoping that getting out of the house might clear my head. Maybe a walk will help me think. But before I can even make it to the door, I get a message notification from Sarah. "I think your mom is starting to talk to people. You need to get ahead of this before it gets worse. Trust me." I sigh, feeling the familiar tension in my chest tighten. Here we go. I haven't talked to Sarah about everything my mom said to me over the years, but I know Sarah. I know she sees through the cracks in the perfect family facade my mom tries so hard to maintain. And Sarah's right. If my mom's already talking to people, I can only imagine what kind of stories she's spinning. I decide to head to Sarah's. She's always been my sounding board, the one who gets me. Maybe I need her advice on how to handle the mess my mom's created. I knock on Sarah's door, and she opens it almost immediately, as though she's been waiting. She gives me a knowing look, gestures for me to come inside, and closes the door behind me. "Everything okay?" she asks, leading me to the kitchen where she's already put on a kettle of tea. She knows exactly how I take it. I sit at the counter, rubbing my temples. No, it's worse than I thought. She's talking to everyone now, and I don't know what to do. Sarah slides a mug of tea across the counter to me. "You're not supposed to fix it. You've done nothing wrong. So why should you? Have to fix it?" I stare at the tea, not knowing how to respond. I know Sarah's right, but the guilt weighs me down, pressing at my chest. My mom is still my mom despite everything. And deep down, I want her to be proud of me. I want her to see me as more than just a reflection of her own desires. But at the same time, I want to be free from this suffocating need to gain her approval. I'm tired of fighting for something that doesn't even exist, I admit, my voice low. She's never seen me? Not really. I was always her backup plan, the person she could rely on when she didn't get the attention she craved. And Linda, Linda was the person who saw me even when I didn't see myself. Sarah listens, nodding thoughtfully. And you're not wrong for that. You can't make her see you the way Linda did. You've tried, haven't you? I think. Back to all the times I tried to get my mom's attention, tried to make her proud, the piano lessons, the grades, the parties I organized for her. Nothing was ever good enough. But with Linda, I didn't have to try so hard. She loved me just for being me. A sharp ding breaks the silence. I glance down at my phone to find another message from my mom. You've posted your love for Linda all over social media. Do you really think that's going to change anything? You're still my daughter. You're still mine. I won't let you push me away like this. I feel my pulse quicken as I read the words. Something in me snaps. The old guilt is there, creeping up. But the anger is louder now. This isn't about Linda anymore. This isn't even about me. It's about control. It's always been about control. My mom can't stand the idea of not being the most important person in my life. And Linda of all people, is a reminder of the love and affection my mom never gave me. I think she's losing it, I mutter, shaking my head. She's trying to make me feel guilty, trying to manipulate me into picking sides. But I can't go back to that place. I just can't. Sarah places a hand on mine, her touch firm but reassuring. You don't have to go back, and you don't have to let her control you anymore. It's your life now. I nod, but the words don't settle in my chest the way they should. I know Sarah's right, but there's a deep, primal part of me that's scared of what will happen if I break away completely. I've spent my whole life in the shadow of my mom's expectations, and even now, even after all this, I don't know how to escape them. I stand up, feeling a mix of resolve and fear. I'm going to tell Linda. I need to. I owe her that much at least. She deserves to know what's going on. I can't keep hiding behind this wall anymore. Sarah raises an eyebrow. Are you sure? I have to, I reply firmly, even though doubt claws at the back of my mind. Linda's been there for me when I had no one else. I owe her the truth. And maybe by being honest with her, I can finally be honest with myself. I take a deep breath, the decision weighing heavily on me. But it feels like the right thing to do. It feels like the first step towards standing on my own. No longer the daughter my mom wanted me to be, but the person I've needed to become. The next few hours pass in a blur of anxiety and anticipation. I spend most of my time pacing around my apartment, unsure of what to do with my hands, my thoughts, or the tangled mess of emotions in my chest. There's a pit in my stomach, but it's not from fear of telling Linda the truth. No, it's something else. It's the sharp, gnawing discomfort of finally confronting the reality of what my relationship with my mom has always been. I've spent so long pretending that things were fine, that the distance between us was just a normal part of family life. But now, everything feels so much clearer. The walls are up, and there's no going back. I try to focus on the task at hand. Telling Linda. She deserves to know. She has to understand what's happening and why I'm making the decisions I am. But even as I prepare myself, I know it's not going to be easy. Linda has always been kind, always given me her undivided attention, and I can't help but feel a twinge of guilt. It's almost like I'm betraying her trust by involving her in my family drama. But then again, she's already part of this mess. She has to know what's going on. I pick up my phone, taking a deep breath before dialing. Her number. My fingers tremble slightly as I press the green button. The phone rings a few times before Linda answers, her voice warm and familiar. Hey, what's up? For a second, I hesitate. How do I even begin this conversation? Do I apologize first? Do I jump straight to the point? What am I even trying to accomplish here? Hey, Linda, I begin, my voice sounding shakier than I'd like. I need to talk to you about something personal. About my mom. I can hear the shift in her tone instantly. Okay, what's going on? I swallow, trying to steady my nerves. She's been freaking out about the post, about everything actually, and I think she's starting to tell people things that aren't true. She's making me out to be the villain in this, And I need you to understand what's going on. I can't keep hiding it from you. There's a long pause on the other end. For a second, I'm afraid she might hang up on me, or worse, that she'll say something I'm not prepared to hear. But then she speaks, and her voice is calm. Almost too calm. I knew something was off, she says, the words carrying a weight I didn't expect. I've seen the way your mom has treated you, and I've seen the way she treats me sometimes too. I guess I just didn't want to admit it. But now it's all starting to make sense. My chest tightens as her words sink in. It feels like the ground beneath me is shifting, like everything I thought I knew about my relationship with Linda is changing. But in a strange way, it also feels freeing. Like I'm not the only one seeing things clearly for the first time. I never wanted this to get messy, I say, my voice cracking slightly. But she's making it impossible not to. I feel like she's turning everyone against me, and I don't know how to fix it. Linda is quiet for a moment. When she speaks again, her tone is softer. You don't have to fix it. You're not the problem here. It's her, not you. I've seen it for years. She's been using you, controlling you, and I can't sit back and let her do it anymore. I almost dropped the phone, the weight of her words sinking into my bones. Linda sees it too. She's been a witness to the toxic dynamic between me and my mom all along, and now she's not letting me carry the burden of it alone anymore. I'm so sorry, Linda, I say, my voice thick with emotion. I never wanted to drag you into this, but I feel like I have no choice. You didn't drag me into anything, she reassures me. I've been here for you, and I will be no matter what. This is just as much my fight now as it is yours. Her words mean more to me than I can express. It's like a weight has been lifted from my chest. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I have someone who truly understands me. Someone who's not gonna judge or pull away when the shit hits the fan. I just don't know what to do next, I confess. I feel like I'm losing everything. My mom, my place in the family, and I don't even know what's left after all of this. Linda's response is steady, unwavering. You're not losing everything. You're losing the things that were never yours to keep in the first place. And that's okay. You'll find your own way. You don't need her approval to be happy. You've got me, and I've got your back. I blink back tears, feeling a surge of relief that makes my throat tighten. It's also overwhelming. But somehow, it feels like I'm starting to untangle the knots that have held me in place for so long. Thank you, I whisper, my voice barely audible. Thank you for being here. I'll always be here, she says softly. Now let's focus on you. What do you need from me right now? I take a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm settling over me. I think I need to finally stand up to her. I can't keep running away from this. It's time to face it head on. I'll help you with that, every step of the way. As we hang up, I feel a sense of clarity wash over me. Linda's support is all I need to move forward. I'm not alone in this, and I don't have to keep pretending everything is fine. It's time to stop hiding behind the lies and finally face the truth of what my family has become. And whatever happens next, I'll face it with Linda by my side. I don't know what I expected when I decided to confront my mom, but nothing could have prepared me for the explosion that followed. I was at home, trying to enjoy a rare, quiet evening, when my phone rang. The number on the screen was my mom's, and I knew this call wasn't going to be pleasant, not after everything that had gone down. I thought about ignoring it, just letting it go to voicemail and pretending it didn't happen. But I couldn't bring myself to do that. Not anymore. I'd been avoiding this conversation for far too long. I took a deep breath and answered. Hello, I said, trying to sound calm, trying to sound like I had control of the situation. There was silence on the other end for a moment before she spoke, her voice laced with anger. You think you can just air our dirty laundry for the whole world to see? She hissed. What kind of daughter are you? Posting that tribute to her instead of me. What were you thinking? I closed my eyes, my grip tightening on the phone. I could feel my chest tightening with the need to defend myself. But I knew this wasn't about reason or logic. This was about her ego. She couldn't see past her own hurt to understand why I had done what I did. Mom, it's not about you. I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but it was hard. Every word felt like it was being torn from me. It's about what I needed, and what I never got from you. That sent her over the edge. Oh, so now you're going to blame me for everything? For the fact that you're an ungrateful child who can't even show basic respect to her own mother? I could feel the bile rising in my throat, but I forced it back down. You don't get it, I said, my voice breaking despite myself. I've spent my whole life trying to make you proud, trying to earn your love, but nothing was ever enough. Nothing I did ever mattered, and now I'm just supposed to pretend like it's okay? Like, I'm supposed to keep pretending everything's fine when it's not? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought she might hang up, but then she spoke again, this time with a chilling calmness. Well, if that's how you feel, maybe it's time for us to take a break. Maybe we need some space. You've made your choice, and I'll make mine. My stomach churned. Space, I repeated, the word bitter in my mouth. You've been giving me space my whole life, and look where it's gotten us. Her voice grew colder. Don't act like you didn't choose this. You chose her over me, and now you'll have to live with the consequences. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that she was the one who'd pushed me away, that she was the one who had made me feel like I wasn't enough, like I would never be enough. But there was no point in arguing. Not anymore. Not when I knew that nothing I said would change her mind. Fine, I said, the word heavy in the silence. If you want space, you've got it. But just know that this isn't just about a post. This is about everything. This is about you and me and the way you've treated me for years. You can pretend all you want, but the truth is right in front of you. There was a long pause before she responded, her voice small, almost shaky. You think I don't love you? I was silent for a moment, the weight of the question hanging in the air like a ghost. I don't know what love is, not when it comes from you, I said softly, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. I thought I did, but I don't anymore. The line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, my heart pounding in my chest. My hands were shaking, but I didn't feel the usual rush of adrenaline I expected after a confrontation like that. Instead, I felt numb, hollow, like I just lost something, but I couldn't figure out what. I didn't know what to do next, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally free. The phone vibrated again, and I quickly looked at the screen. It was a message from Linda. You okay? I stared at the message for a moment, trying to gather my thoughts. The truth was, I didn't know if I was okay. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. But what I did know was that I had finally said the things I needed to say. I had finally stood up for myself in a way that I never had before. I typed back quickly, my fingers trembling slightly. I will be. Just need some time. I hit send, but before I could set the phone down, another message popped up. Take all. The time you need. You're not alone. I smiled. A real smile this time. The first in days. It wasn't going to be easy. But with Linda by my side, I could face whatever came next. I thought the hardest part was going to be the confrontation, but I was wrong. The real challenge came after. The aftermath. The days that followed, the silence that hung in the air like an unspoken agreement between my mother and me. For the first few days, I didn't hear from her at all. At first, I thought I might have felt a sense of relief. But as the hours stretched on, a growing knot tightened in my chest. I didn't know what I expected, but I guess I thought there would be more. An apology, an explanation. Something that would give me the closure I hadn't realized I desperately needed. But nothing came. No phone calls, no messages. Just an emptiness that felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. I spent a lot of time with Linda, trying to fill the void with distractions. We'd go for walks, sit at the cafe, talk about everything and nothing. It was comforting. But even in those moments, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I wasn't sure what, but it was like there was a part of me that was still waiting for something to happen. Then, about a week later, I received a message. It was from her. It was short, simple, almost cold. We need to talk. It felt like the weight of an entire lifetime hung in those 3 words. My hands shook as I stared at the screen, the anticipation twisting in my stomach. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that whatever it was, it would be the final chapter of this story. I took a deep breath and responded, trying to sound calm. When? She didn't reply immediately, but the wait felt agonizing. Another hour passed, then another, before she finally sent a time. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. My place. I didn't know if I was ready, but I knew I couldn't put this off any longer. If this was the end of something, of us, then I needed to face it, once and for all. The next afternoon, I stood in front of her door, my heart pounding, my palms sweaty. The house felt different somehow, quieter. The familiar smell of her perfume lingered in the air, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt foreign, detached. When she opened the door, I braced myself. She looked different too. There was a weariness in her eyes that I hadn't noticed before, something that felt vulnerable, but I didn't know what to do with it. "Come in," she said, her voice almost too soft. I hesitated for a moment, but then stepped inside. We stood there for a moment, neither of us speaking. The tension was unbearable, but I refused to let her break me. "Not anymore." "I'm sorry," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "For everything." I blinked, surprised by the words. I had expected an apology, sure, but not one that felt so genuine. It took me a moment to process it. "For everything?" I repeated. "You mean for what you did to me?" She nodded slowly, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Yes, for the way I treated you, for how I always put my needs first. I was selfish. I didn't see you." "Not really." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words settle inside me, but it didn't bring the relief I thought it would. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to forgive her, to let go of all the anger I'd been holding on to for so long, but part of me, deep down, knew that this apology couldn't undo the years of hurt. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said finally, my voice shaky but honest. "I don't know if I can forget everything that happened, but I need you to understand. What I did wasn't about hurting you. It wasn't about punishing you. It was about me taking back control, taking back my own life, because for so long I felt like I didn't have one." She looked at me then, and I could see the tears threatening to fall, but she didn't let them. "I understand," she said softly. "I do. And I wish I had been the mother you needed. I wish I had known how to be there for you, but I don't expect anything from you now. Not forgiveness, not understanding. All I want is for you to have what you need, what you deserve." I looked at her for a long time, trying to decide what to say, what to do. I didn't want to carry this burden anymore. The anger, the resentment, the hurt, it was exhausting. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to release it all just yet. "I'm still figuring things out," I said finally, my voice steady now, though still raw. "But I don't want to keep pretending. I don't want to keep lying to myself. I'm not sure where we go from here, but I'm willing to try." "If you are," she nodded, a small, almost tentative smile forming on her lips. "I'll wait," she said, "as long as it takes." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I actually believed her. We didn't hug. We didn't fall into some dramatic reconciliation, but something shifted in that moment. Something quiet and tentative, but real. A possibility, a thread of connection that hadn't been there before. As I left her house, I felt lighter. It wasn't the resolution I had hoped for, but it was something. Maybe this was the beginning of something else, something new. I wasn't sure yet, but for the first time in my life, I was okay with not having all the answers. I looked down at my phone, seeing Linda's name pop up on the screen. "How'd it go?" I smiled, tapping out a quick reply. We're getting there. Slowly, but we're getting there. I knew it wasn't over. But I also knew that I wasn't the same person I had been when all this started. I wasn't the girl who waited for someone else to make things right. I had taken control of my own story. And for the first time, I felt like I could finally begin to live it.
I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, the kind of mindless habit that fills the void when there's nothing better to do. A glass of wine beside me, half finished. The evening stretched out ahead of me with nothing to do but wait for him to get back from work. He'd been late a lot recently. Late replying to texts, late getting home, late for everything. But I didn't mind. I liked having the space to myself. Or at least that's what I told myself. I hadn't noticed the text at first. It pinged into my notifications, buried beneath a couple of group chats, and I thought nothing of it. It wasn't until I picked up my phone to check something else that I saw it. A message from him, the guy I'd been dating for the past 2 years. His name flashed across the screen and my thumb instinctively swiped it open. "Hey babe, what are you up to tonight? Just wanted to check in with my plan B before I meet up with her." It took me a second to process. Plan B? I stared at the screen for a few seconds, wondering if I'd read it wrong. I didn't, though. I didn't imagine it. The words were right there, plain as day, sitting in my lap like some kind of cruel joke. At first, I thought it was a mistake. He'd sent it to me by accident. That seemed possible, right? I could hear the excuse now. Oh, that was meant for someone else. But I didn't respond straight away. I stared at those words, trying to make sense of them. I couldn't. Plan B. I thought about the way he'd always been there. Always ready with a smile when I needed him. How we'd spent weekends together, laughing over takeout or in the middle of silly little arguments. How we'd made plans for the future, for trips we wanted to take, for things we wanted to build. But plan B? Was that what I was? The backup? The fallback option? I felt a small, sickening twist in my stomach. Not the sharp kind of anger, but the quiet kind that slowly spreads and takes root. This wasn't the first time I'd wondered about where I stood in his life. The late nights, the forgotten dates, the way he sometimes seemed more interested in his phone than in me when we were together. Maybe it had all led to this. And yet the most frustrating part? I wasn't even angry. Not at first. I didn't yell, didn't confront him right away. Instead, I let it sit there. A heavy thing I couldn't quite touch, but I felt it. I put the phone down and let out a long breath, pressing my lips together. My heart pounded harder now, like I could almost feel the blood rushing to my face. But I stayed still, not letting myself move. Maybe he didn't know what he was saying. Maybe it was just a joke, his weird way of being funny, of trying to flirt with someone else. But even if that were true, it didn't matter, did it? The fact that he'd thought it was okay to call me Plan B was enough. It said everything. Kept the phone in my lap, staring at it. The message blinked on the screen, silent and unmoving, like a reminder. A quiet, unspoken thing that sat between us now. And I didn't know what to do about it. Maybe I'd reply later. Maybe I wouldn't. Either way, I felt something changing inside me. I wasn't going to act like I hadn't seen it. I wasn't going to pretend this wasn't a moment. For once, I wasn't going to be his backup. I didn't reply to him. Not right away, anyway. The text stayed there on my phone, an unwelcome guest I couldn't quite shake. It didn't sit well, like an itch I couldn't scratch. But I couldn't bring myself to answer. Not then, not in the heat of it. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to say. If I had fired back, I might have said something I would regret. And yet I had no idea how to let it go either. The next few days passed, and life sort of carried on, as it always does. I went to work, grabbed coffee with my friends, ran errands, and pretended like everything was fine. But I couldn't forget the text. It lingered in the back of my mind, an open wound I couldn't stop touching. I couldn't ignore how it had made me feel, how it had made me question everything I thought I knew about him, about us. I tried not to think about it, but it was hard not to. Every time I looked at him, something felt off. There was a weight to his presence now, a gap I couldn't quite fill. He seemed more distant, even when we were in the same room. I could feel the tension growing, but I didn't know how to address it. How do you confront someone over something like this? Over being called Plan B? He seemed oblivious, or maybe he was just pretending. Either way, it didn't matter. He acted like everything was normal. He came home, kissed me on the cheek, and made dinner plans for our anniversary, a dinner we'd been planning for months. I went along with it, not saying a word about the text or how much it had thrown me. I didn't want to ruin the evening, but something inside me shifted, and I wasn't sure I could let it slide, not this time. Not when it had made me feel so small. We went out that night, the restaurant dimly lit and filled with the soft murmur of conversation. It wasn't the kind of place we went to often, too fancy for a casual night out, but perfect for an anniversary. Dinner. He'd even bought me flowers, a sweet gesture that momentarily made me forget the sting. He smiled at me across the table, talking about everything and nothing at all. I smiled back too. We looked like any other couple, sharing wine and food, taking the occasional selfie together. But I couldn't ignore the unease I felt beneath the surface. Somewhere between the main course and the dessert, he took my hand, his eyes soft. "You look amazing tonight," he said, the words laced with that affectionate tone I'd come to expect. "Thanks," I replied, a smile tugging at my lips. I wasn't sure if it was real anymore. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. "You okay?" he asked, his voice quieter now, more serious. "I'm fine," I said, and for a moment, I thought I could convince myself that I was. But something in the pit of my stomach said otherwise. The waiter came by and placed a small box in front of me, a gesture I wasn't expecting. It was wrapped in dark blue paper, with a silver bow. My heart skipped a beat. It was strange. This whole night felt strange now, a disconnect I couldn't name, couldn't explain. But the gift? It was something I had to act normal for. I opened it slowly, pulling back the paper, revealing a silver necklace inside, its chain glinting in the dim light. It was beautiful. Too beautiful. I ran my fingers over it, trying to ignore the unease that clung to my skin like a second layer. "It's perfect," I said, though the words felt hollow coming from my mouth. But then I noticed the look in his eyes. Something in them, the way he was watching me, made me feel like he didn't know what was coming next. I don't think he knew anything. I put the necklace back in its box and glanced at my phone, where the text still sat, waiting. I could almost hear it, the pulse of the message, the weight of those two words, Plan B. "Actually, I have something for you too," I said, my voice steady even though everything inside me was trembling. I reached into my bag and pulled out a framed photo, a picture of us from one of our weekends away, laughing in the sunlight. I handed it to him, along with a note I'd written. He looked at me with those soft eyes, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. He opened the note. And then I saw it. The shift. The moment when the smile faltered, when his face froze and he realized what I had given him. It wasn't a gift. Not really. Not the way it seemed. The note read, "I just became Plan. For someone better." The silence between us was deafening. I watched as his fingers hovered over the note, his face slowly draining of color. He didn't look at me, not right away. His gaze was fixed on the paper, the words sinking in. There was nothing else in the world at that moment but that note and the shift in the air. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, a mix of anger and something else, something colder, more distant. It wasn't even about the text anymore. It wasn't about the fact that he'd accidentally called me Plan B. No, it was something deeper. The realization that I had been living in a shadowed version of a relationship, one where I was always second. Second choice, second best, second in line. He finally looked up at me, his eyes wide, searching, like he was looking for something I couldn't give him anymore. What does this mean? He asked, his voice a little too quiet, a little too unsure. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms across my chest. It means exactly what it says. There was no getting around it. The words had left my lips, and now we had to deal with them. I didn't regret what I'd said, not one bit. I was tired of being the backup, the just-in-case option. He needed to hear it. He needed to understand how far I had fallen from what we once were. He shifted uncomfortably, his hands fumbling with the framed photo, trying to make sense of the situation. But I don't care what you meant. My voice was sharper than I'd intended, but I couldn't stop it. I care about what you said, what you meant without even thinking about it. He blinked as if the words had punched him in the gut. His eyes dropped to the table, his fingers absently tracing the edges of the frame. It was just an accident, okay? A mistake. I didn't mean to send it to you. I couldn't help but laugh, but it wasn't a real laugh. It was hollow, bitter. An accident? So now I'm just an accident to you? He winced, his expression falling into a mixture of regret and confusion. No, it's not like that. Then what is it like exactly? I leaned forward, lowering my voice just enough for only him to hear. Because I'm sick of pretending. That it doesn't matter. That I don't matter. I've been second to you for so long, I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm tired of it. His face softened, but the softness didn't reach his eyes. They were clouded with something I didn't recognize. I don't want you to feel like that. Then why do I? I shot back, not giving him a chance to speak. Why do I always feel like I'm the one waiting for your attention, your affection, your love? And when it comes down to it, when it really matters, like when I need you the most, I'm just Plan B. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. His jaw tightened, as if he were trying to find the right words. But I wasn't interested in hearing him scramble for an excuse. I wasn't interested in hearing more about how he didn't mean it. I had been on the receiving end of his "I didn't mean it" for too long. I pushed my chair back and stood up. I don't want your apologies. I don't want your excuses. You're too late for that. He stood up too, almost in a panic, reaching for my hand. Wait, don't leave. Let's talk about this. I jerked my hand away, my heart racing with a mixture of anger and relief. We've talked enough, haven't we? Don't you think it's time I stopped pretending everything was fine? Because it's not. I've been suffocating in this relationship, and I'm done. I walked away from the table then, the clinking of the glasses and the murmur of other diners fading into the background. I could feel the weight of his gaze on my back, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to see the shame in his eyes, the confusion, or whatever else he was going to try and say to fix this, because no matter what he said, I knew the truth. I had become someone's first choice. Someone who saw me as enough. I didn't know who that person was yet, but I wasn't going to wait around for him to figure it out. I wasn't his second choice anymore. I spent the next few days in a haze. It wasn't even about the anger anymore, not entirely. It was about clarity. For the first time in ages, I felt like I could breathe without the constant pressure of trying to make everything work, trying to make him work. I realized I hadn't been living for myself in a long time. I'd been living for the version of him that I thought I could fix. I'd been living for the hope that things would change. That one day, I wouldn't feel second. And maybe that was the most exhausting part of all. The waiting. The hardest thing was admitting to myself that I hadn't just been second to him. I had been second to myself. All this time, I had kept myself on the back burner, hoping that eventually he would make me feel like I was important enough to be first. But that was never going to happen. It had been a slow, painful realization, but it was true. I wasn't his priority, and I had never been mine. I took a long walk, trying to clear my head, trying to figure out what to do next. It felt good, actually. The movement, the space, the fact that I was making decisions for me and not for him. I thought about the text, the one that had broken everything wide open, I kept replaying it in my mind. Plan B. How careless he had been. How easy it was for him to call me that without even thinking. I pulled out my phone and stared at the message for a while, my thumb hovering over the screen. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Some kind of closure? A reason to stay? I didn't know. But I did know this. I had to let go of the idea that somehow everything could go back to how it was before. I needed to move forward. The hardest part of this whole thing was the timing. It was our anniversary. The dinner, the plan, the surprise. That I had been waiting to give him for weeks. It was supposed to be the perfect night. But that night, it had become my turning point. It was time for me to stop being the woman who waited and to start being the woman who chose herself. I wanted him to feel what I had been feeling. I wanted him to understand what it was like to be the one who didn't come first. To see how much it hurt to watch someone you loved go through the motions, pretending that everything was fine when it really wasn't. I had the framed photo, still. I had the note. And I knew, right then, exactly what I needed to do. I went to a local shop that afternoon, a little boutique that I used to pass by but had never really explored. Inside, it was cozy, with shelves lined with books, candles, and all sorts of trinkets. The owner was an older woman with kind eyes and a knowing smile. I asked her if she had anything that might be meaningful, something with a bit of a punch. She didn't question me, just smiled and nodded. And after a few minutes of browsing, I found it. A small, handcrafted box. Simple, elegant, with a soft velvet lining inside. It was the kind of thing that could hold a small keepsake, a memory, a truth that needed to be locked away. It felt right. I paid for it, and as I left the shop, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. It was like a weight had been lifted. The box wasn't for him, it was for me. For everything I had been holding on to, and everything I had to let go of. I spent the rest of the afternoon writing. The note. The one that I would slip inside the A. Box. It was short, just a few lines, but it carried everything I needed to say. Everything I needed him to hear. The evening was here. Our anniversary dinner. The one I had spent weeks planning. The one that was supposed to mark a year of us together. Meant to be a celebration. A renewal of the promises we'd made to each other. A time for us to reflect on the journey we had shared, or so I thought. I had picked out a lovely restaurant. Quiet, intimate, nothing too flashy. A place we both enjoyed, with candles flickering on each table and soft jazz in the background. But the moment we sat down, I felt this odd tension in my chest. He looked at me, his smile just a little too wide, too practiced. And for the first time, I wondered whether he was putting on a show for the world or if he had forgotten about the cracks between us. I studied his face, noting the slight weariness in his eyes. Had he been drinking already? Maybe he'd had a long day. It didn't matter. He was still smiling. He was still pretending. The waiter brought the menus and I ordered something light. Not that I was really focused on food. I wasn't here for the meal. I was here for the moment when I'd hand him that box, the one with the truth, inside. I had rehearsed it all in my mind, what I would say, how I would say it. I wanted to be calm, collected, to take control of this night. No more surprises for him, no more making excuses for him, no more pretending that everything was okay when I had never really been enough. He leaned back in his chair, eyes scanning the menu, unaware of the storm brewing right beneath his very feet. "Do you want to exchange gifts tonight?" he asked, his voice casual. Too casual. I smiled softly, the same smile I'd worn countless times, but now it felt different. It felt like it wasn't mine. It felt like it belonged to someone who didn't care anymore. "Sure," I replied, placing my hand on the box. I slid it across the table towards him, careful not to make a scene. It was small, the box fitting neatly into his palm. I didn't speak, just watched him as he picked it up and studied it with curiosity. "What's this?" he asked, sounding genuinely unsure. "Open it," I replied, my voice steady. Too steady, maybe. Inside, I could feel my heart racing, but I wasn't going to show that. I wasn't going to let him see how much this hurt me. He opened the box slowly, lifting the top with an almost theatrical care. His eyes flicked between the framed picture and the note inside, the silence stretching out, thick and suffocating. I watched his face as he took it all in. First, the picture, the screenshot of the text. His hand froze as he read the words on the screen, and for a moment, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. His face shifted from confusion to something else. Regret? Panic? I couldn't tell. He was searching for words, but there was nothing he could say to undo what had already been said. Finally, he glanced up at me. Wait, this is... I interrupted him, my voice quiet but firm. You called me Plan B. The words hung in the air between us, thick with meaning. I didn't... He paused, glancing down at the note. I didn't mean it like that. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't mean it, but you still said it. He shifted in his seat, his discomfort becoming obvious. I was just texting my friend and it was a mistake. I don't need you to explain. I cut him off. I wasn't angry. Not yet. But I was getting close. I just need you to understand why I can't keep doing this. Why I can't keep pretending that I'm your second choice. I deserve more than that. I am more than that. I watched him swallow. Hard, his mouth opening and closing as if he were trying to find the right words. But all I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. His words no longer mattered. I had made my point. I'm done, I said softly. This wasn't the anniversary I wanted. I wanted a real connection. I wanted someone who would choose me. But you're not that person anymore. Sat there, stunned, as I watched him. I didn't need to say anything else. He knew. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur, the small talk, the awkward silences, the glances he kept shooting me, searching for any sign of a crack, any way back. Into my good graces, but there was none. I wasn't the same person who had walked into that restaurant. I wasn't the same person who had spent years trying to make him see me. I was different now, stronger, more certain, and for the first time, I felt free. We didn't speak much for the rest of the evening. The gift was the breaking point, the tipping of the scale, and once I had said what needed to be said, there was no going back. He didn't try to argue further. Not because he understood, but because he didn't know what else to say. He couldn't undo the damage that had already been done. I watched him push his plate around, barely touching his food. I, on the other hand, had lost my appetite long ago. Every bite, every attempt at polite conversation felt like a betrayal. We weren't a couple anymore, not really. I had stopped being a part of his life a long time ago. The waiter cleared, our plates, and the moment I knew I had to leave came. There was no more pretending, no more sitting through this farce of a dinner. I took a deep breath and looked at him, my eyes locking with his for the first time since I had handed him the box. You don't need to walk me home, I said, my voice calm but final. I'll be fine. He looked up, confused, almost shocked. What? I'm going, I interrupted, standing up. You can stay here if you want. I'm done. The words hit him harder than I expected. For a moment, he didn't move, just stared at me, his face a mixture of disbelief and fear. It was the same look he always gave me when I took control. When I finally stopped being his Plan B and became the woman who walked away with her, head held high. I don't understand, he stammered, rising from his seat. Is this really how it ends? I didn't answer him right away. I didn't need to. He already knew. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone, quickly tapping out a text. The message was brief, but final. I didn't owe him any explanations. I didn't owe him any more of my time. Not anymore. As I hit send, I stood there for a moment, watching him. He was trying to process, trying to find some way to fix it. But there was no fixing this. Not with words, not with apologies, not with promises. I think you should go home, I said, walking toward the door, my heels clicking sharply on the floor. And I think you should take a good long look at your life, because I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm not going to be your backup. I'm going to be someone's first choice, someone who values me the way I deserve. I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. I had already made my decision. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. A peace that came from knowing I had made the right choice. I had chosen me. I stepped outside into the cool night air, the weight of the situation finally sinking in. I felt lighter somehow, as though a burden had been lifted. The world felt bigger, clearer, full of possibility. I wasn't waiting for anyone to choose me. I was going to choose myself. I tapped my phone, pulling up the message I had just sent him. A simple text, one that said everything I needed to say without saying too much. His text, Plan B. My reply, I just became Plan A for someone better. Smiled at the words, letting the weight of them sink in. He didn't get it yet. But he would. And when he did, he would finally realize that he wasn't the one who had walked away. I wasn't bitter, I wasn't angry anymore. There was nothing left for me to be. I had stepped out of his shadow. I had claimed my space in the world, and nothing would ever make me shrink again. I wasn't his second choice. I wasn't his backup. I was my first choice, and that was enough. I walked away, my heart lighter than it had been in years, knowing that this was just the beginning of something new, something better, something that was all mine.